Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Hope you are fine and doing well. Today in this video I'm going to discuss the history of English literature. Let's have a glimpse of history of English literature, where I'll be discussing the major events of the periods in English literature, and then the major writers and major events of the age. So let's begin with the word literature. Let's have refresh our knowledge of the word literature. So people define literature in their own way. In different definitions are there, and literature is very broad, and so first look at the etymology of the word literature. Literature is a Latin word which is derived from litera, which means letter. So literature, the most common definition of literature is any written expression or a piece of writing or a piece of art is literature. And then other definitions are that literature is the reflection of life, and as you define literature in using different words, different definitions. So let's begin with the history of English literature. So these are notes, you can say, about the brief history of English literature. So for the convenience of discussion, historians divide the history of English literature into segments. These are known as the periods, or you can also them as epochs of English literature. So they divide in this manner that it begins from 450. It begins for 450, and the period from 450 to 1066 is known as Old English, also known as Anglo Saxon period. And then from 1066 to 1500, known as the Middle English period, and 1500 to 1660, the Renaissance. And then there are subdivisions as well: 15 to 1558 to 1603, Elizabethan age. This also comes under Renaissance, Elizabethan age. And then 1603 to 1625, Jacobean age. 1625 to 1649, Caroline age. 1649 to 1660, Commonwealth period. And then 1660 to 1785, Neo-classical period. And then the subcategories or subperiods under this main period are 1660 to 1700, the Restoration period. 1700 to 1745, the Augustan age. And 1745 to 1785, the Age of Sensibility, or sometimes it is also known as the Age of Johnson. And then 1785 to 1832, the Romantic period. 1832 to 1901, the Victorian period. 1848 to 1860, the Pre-Raphaelite. And then 1880 to 1901 is known as aestheticism and decadence. You might heard about these terms, aesthetic movement and decadent movement, and you will study this in the upcoming semester, that you study Oscar Wilde, that he is a part of this aesthetic movement. And then 1901 to 1914, the Edwardian period. 1910 to 1936, Georgian period. 1914 to onwards, the modern period. And 1945 to onwards, then up till now, the post-modern period. So let's start with the Old English period. We will highlight some major events of this period and the major writers. The Old English period, or Anglo Saxon period, it counted from the invasion of Celtic England by the Germanic tribes, the Anglo Saxons and Jutes, in the first half of 15th century, to the conquest of England in 1066 by the Norman French under the leadership of William the Conqueror, and Anglo Saxons were then converted to Christianity in 7th century. English literature started with the songs and stories of those three tribes, and its subjects were the sea, the boats, the battles, the adventures, love of home, and they are glorifying the wars, the victories, and all of this. And their poetry reflected their profound emotions, bravery, and then they used techniques, alliterations, and other. And then, so the main characteristic of Anglo Saxon literature are the love of freedom and responsiveness to the nature, strong religious relations, have a strong belief in faith, and then respect to womanhood and devotion to the glory as the ruling motive in every Victorian life. And then Beowulf, you might heard about this. This is the you can say the first or the oldest literature is the Beowulf. It is a long poem. It is a heroic folk epic of unknown author, anonymous. Its author is anonymous, and it's very famous in Old English literature. It's a story of about 3,000 lions. A brave young man, Beowulf, from the southern Elizabethan, goes to help Hrothgar, the king of Danes, and kills a terrible monster. And there, the interesting thing is that there is a web series based on Beowulf. You can better watch it and have a clear idea about this. It is quite interesting. So I'm not going to discuss in detail. Okay, and second period is the Middle English period. When the Middle English came into being with its literary usage, the most extensive writing was conducted on subjects associated with the religion, and then the major writer are the Geoffrey Chaucer, French. He is a French writer, a poet. He is also known as the father of English poetry, and he is famous for his poetry and other literary works. And his most important literary work is the Canterbury Tales, and you will study this in your classical poetry in your third semester. And then Geoffrey Chaucer, here you see Canterbury Tales, and then it consists of 30 tales, a group of pilgrims where they go on a pilgrimage and tells each other stories. So you study this in detail. And then effect of this age are illiterate population is able to hear and see the literature, and then content religious devotion, romances, choleric god of honor. Now come to the Renaissance. Renaissance age is divided into four dominant periods, which are the Elizabethan age, Jacobean age, Caroline age, and then Commonwealth period. So we better understand by divided into different periods, sub periods you may say. So this Renaissance is the period which is marked by supplementary terms such as the Renaissance basically means rebirth, revival. So there is the rebirth and revival of everything in all walks of life, especially in literature, knowledge, and technology as well. And then Elizabethan age, the name indicates that there was the role of Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabethan ruled England from 1558 to 1603, and she steadily loved England and inspiring all her people with her unbounded patriotism, and then which excelled Shakespeare. Shakespeare is very important figure of this age, the Renaissance, the Elizabethan age, and these are basically the same. Okay, Elizabethan and Renaissance. And then his major works, you study his poems and his poetry. Okay, and then another important figure of this age, major writers, Christopher Marlowe. Christopher Marlowe is a revolutionary figure in English literature, in English drama, and his major work is the Dr. Faustus, which you will study a tragedy, which is a tragedy which you will study in your second semester. And then comes the Shakespeare, the greatest dramatist, poet of English literature, known as the national poet of England. He is also an actor, writer, and then he is such a figure in literature that we have no words to describe his works. And then his sonnets are also very famous in English literature. Okay, and some major important works that you will study in your other upcoming semester, that you study about Hamlet, King Lear, and then Comedy Night, etc. Then okay, there is a detail about his birth and his family life, no need to discuss it. Then Ben Jonson is also a very important literary figure. Okay, and then Edmund Spenser. Okay, these are important figures. Francis Bacon. And so the major characteristics of this age are great interest in the travel, exploration, commerce. New form of sonnet was introduced by William Shakespeare. Nationalistic and pathetic feelings, great poetic output, and golden age of drama. Poetry of freshness, youthful and romantic feelings. New classical influence, essay writing was remarkable, and it was established as a genre by Bacon. And then come the Neo-classical age, 1660 to 1785. The writers of this age broke the trends of the Elizabethan age and then started new styles of writing. So as the name indicate, neo mean new, so they classical mean old, so they break the old traditions and adopted new style of writing. That's why it is also known as Neoclassical age. Then Elizabethan writers were highly imaginative and spontaneous, but Neoclassical, or the writers of Neoclassical age, become highly intellectual and reason based on their rationality. Okay, they give preference to rational, and the writers of that age practice logical arguments, reasoning based writing. It is full of intellect rather than emotions. Okay, there are some major works in the prose and plain writings. Neoclassical age is divided into three main periods, which are following the Restoration. Augustan age, which is also known as Augustan age, is also known as the age of Pope Alexander Pope, who is a very famous literary figure, and the age of sensibility. And then Augustan age was the brilliant literary period of the Virgil, Horace, Quaid, under the Roman Emperor Augustus, and the leading writer of the time, such as known as Alexander Pope, Joseph Addison, and then many more. Major writers of Neoclassical period: John Dryden, and his representative figures of a neoclassical age. Dryden was the greatest poet, supreme satirist of neoclassical age. He is successful in his heroic tragedies, okay, and the famous for blank verse, okay. And then William Congreve is the supreme master of the comedy of manners. He wrote all his dramas before he was 30. And Ben Jonson, okay. Then John Bunyan. John Bunyan wrote about 60 books, and he was a religious man with a great respect to the Bible. His book include the Pilgrim's Progress and many other more. And Alexander Pope is a very famous and leading poet of this age. In spite of his bad health, he composed outstanding poems, and his very masterpiece is The Rape of the Lock, which is a long poem which pictures the clear artificiality of life. That you will study this poem, Rape of the Lock, in your third semester. Then comes the Thomas Gray, William Blake, Robert Burns, Dr. Samuel Johnson are very famous. Then the characteristics of this age are: emphasis was laid on the correctness, the restoration of drama, imitation of classical way of writing, objectivity, detachment on the part of writer, appeal to the intellect rather than in a satire. It focus on the reason, directness, avoid the mysterious or obscure. This is the age of prose, description of the urban civilization and higher aristocratic or rich class. Emphasis on the precise form, unified structure, clarity in writing. Then comes the Romantic period, 1785 to 1832. Romanticism is the revolt against the pseudo-classicism or Augustan age. The publication of the lyrical ballads, 1798, was the herald of the Romanticism. And then Augustan age was highly intellectual, rational, artificial style, no place for the nature and feelings, deal with the artificial life of upper class. And Romanticism revolt against these and then return to nature, play a very important role in the changing people to love nature, rejecting nasty crowd of the town. And then medieval revival is notable trend of this age. Romantic poetry is spontaneous overflow of powerful passions, love of supernatural, and there is a wonder, mystery and beauty of the universe and nature. And yes, these are major characters of this age. And some important literary figures are Lord Byron, John Austen, and then Walter Scott. And features of this age are worshipping and love of nature, subjective and spontaneous literature. Women novelists emerge, such as Jane Austen, her Pride and Prejudice, and poetry of age adore nature, revolt against the pseudo-classicism, appreciation of nature, philosophical as well as aesthetic grounds, rationality, nationalism, love of supernatural, etc. The Victorian Age, 1832 to 1901. Queen Victoria ruled England from 1837 to 1901, and the Victorian was an era of material influence, political consciousness, industrial and mechanical progress, scientific advancement, educational expansion, empire building, and religious tolerance. The Victorian age was a period of peace and prosperity. Education was highly developed in this period, and Charles Darwin's Origin of Species changed the traditional concept of W.J. Long that says that this is the age of prose and novel. Novel in this age fills the place which the drama held in days of Elizabeth. Immortal novels were written and published in this age. Victorian literature is the writing of realism rather than of romance, not of realism of Zola and Ibsen. And then major figures: Alfred Lord Tennyson and many more. Major writers: Tennyson, as we discussed, representative of the writer of this Victorian age, great lyricist, and he made a minor observation in nature. He was the third surviving son of the rector. And then the main work are the poem by two brothers, The Princess Idle-Tears and The Cup. Robert Browning, and here is his introduction, that he was middle class. His father was a clerk and mother was a sensitive. Then his major work is The Soul, Men and Women, The Ring and the Book, and many more. Elizabethan or Barrett Browning. E.V. Browning wrote good poems in spite of her poor health. She married Robert Browning without her parent consent, and her major books are The Cry of Children. And then George Eliot. George Eliot is a female novelist, wrote calmer novels and stories. She was a psychological novelist, and her novels are serious with the moral lessons, and she got married. And her work are Adam Bate, Middlemarch, etc. Matthew Arnott. Matthew Arnott started writing poems since his school life, though he seemed to be a bit pessimistic in his writing, and some famous books such as Literature and Dogma, New Poems on the Study of Celtic Literature, and journal features of this age are great influence of science and scientific method. Age can be called as the age of idealism. There was compromise between royal power and democracy. Beginning of realism as a literature came very close to the daily life. This is the age of novel and continuation of Romanticism. Literature reflected love, truth, justice, brotherhood, etc., and reflection of female problems in literature came very closely. So this is a glimpse of English literature. Hope you understand. Thank you very much.